Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1978. We're going to be taking a look at REO Speedwagon and they're going to be performing Time for Me to Fly. And after last night's rant about auto-tune and the music industry in general, it's great to get back to these guys back in the day for a purely live performance. So let's get these guys up on screen and see how they get on.
I've been around for you, been up and down for you, but I just can't get any relief. I've swallowed my pride for you, lived and lied for you, but you still make me feel like a thief. Well, you got me stealing your love away, 'cause you never give it. Peeling the years away, and we can't relive it. Oh, I make you laugh, and you make me cry. I believe it's time for me to fly. Well, you said we'd work it out. You said that sure had no doubt that deep down we were really in love. Oh, but I'm tired of holding on to a feeling I know is gone. I do believe that I've had enough. Well, I've had enough of the falseness of a worn-out relation. Enough of the jealousy and the intoleration. Well, I make you laugh and you make me cry. I believe it's time for me to fly. Time for me to fly. And I got to set myself free. Time for me to fly. But that's just how it's got to be. I know it hurts to say goodbye, but it's time for me to fly. Ooh, baby. Time for me to fly. Oh, I've got to set myself free.
I'm just going to jump in here. I had to leave in Gary's solo just before getting back into the vocals, but this is what I'm talking about in terms of just a pure live performance, and also the way that Kevin's voice is so accurate. Like I was saying last night, he doesn't need auto-tune, and it is sacrilege to stick auto-tune on a guy's voice when it is this good. Especially some of those lines that Kevin throws in there. Kevin Cronin, by the way, if you don't know who I'm talking about, the guy on screen. And I know that people will refer to Kevin as a rock singer, hard rock singer, pop rock singer as well. But there's definitely a country twang in there, especially the way that he ends phrases vocally, because he just adds little trills that have that little slide and country edge to it. So it's a really cool vocal in terms of the stylizations going on, but also just the accuracy of his pitch. Obviously, it's not pitch perfect in terms of hitting the note dead on every time like auto-tune, but because he's ever so slightly off, that gives it the expression. But you can't tell it's off because you only realize it's off when you look at a tuner and you see, oh, he was 3 cents off being perfect pitch there. It doesn't matter. That's where the expression comes from. That's what I was talking about yesterday. Guys like this set the bar so high in the late 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and like I said, I saw Kevin singing in 2019 and he still got it vocally. They set that bar so high that the reason that they're on TV and they're recording albums is because they're the best of the best. There was no way to cheat. So having this vocal performance, it's totally backed up by the band because REO Speedwagon are so solid live. When I mention about the solidity of the performance, that all starts with the rhythm section, the drums and bass being a tight unit, and then everything can be placed on top of that. And we have that in this performance. And this is also a great composition just to point out the important fact of keeping tempo, because we've got Kevin starting off with the 12 string and he's setting the tempo himself. How many times have you seen a band perform a song that has an intro where the singer might be playing a 12 string, or they might be playing an acoustic, or just accompanying themselves, and they are setting the tempo, and as soon as the drums come in, they're 3 or 4 beats out in terms of pushing the tempo or being too slow, and it doesn't flow like it had been doing in the intro. Here we have a great example of how to do it by Alan Gratzner, because he is dead on with that timing and just adds that drive to the performance with the introduction of the drums, but he's not pushing the tempo. So the whole groove of the track just is maintained. Just to explain quickly as well, I did mention this yesterday, but the way that Kevin is barring the guitar here with his thumb over the top, I've seen some comments underneath this video, and I'll leave the link to this in the description below so you guys can watch this version of the video if you want to after you've watched this particular analysis. But people that have commented underneath, one person said, I was laughing at the way that Kevin's playing guitar because it's the stupidest thing I've seen. And then another guy commented underneath saying, yeah, I thought that. And they were saying maybe he just didn't learn how to do bar chords. But musically, he has to play it like this, and I think you've got to play guitar to understand why Kevin is playing the guitar with his thumb over the top, fretting 4 strings, because it means you can leave the high E and the B string to ring out. If you're doing a standard bar chord with your first finger, you're covering all of the strings, so it means that high E and high B string will just be muted, or they'll be fretted, and you don't want to fret those notes for this particular composition because you want those strings all to ring out to give you a really nice full chord sound by leaving open strings in there. So it is a musical necessity for the sound of the chord that he's playing to not fret those top 2 strings. So like I said, it's probably the fact that people commenting don't play and they don't realize the practical application of having your thumb over the top. This isn't standard tuning, this is open chord tuning to a chord of D. So all that will be happening is that Kevin will be strumming open strings to begin with and then applying the bar with his thumb over the top when they want to change the chord. But when you are in standard tuning, the thumb over the top just supplies that root note so that players can then start blending lead and rhythm together because you're in your lead position and you've still got access to your root note of your chord with the thumb. I mentioned Alan on drums being so solid, but also a quick shout out to Bruce Hall on bass because we get a great mix here. So we get to appreciate how solid that back line is and Bruce's playing in general. And this is 1978, I think. So it would have been the year after Greg Philbin had left the band. So pretty much a fresh bassist coming in here with Bruce Hall, but he's doing such a great job on this particular track live. Neil Doughty is on keys here as well, and he's one of the co-founders of the band with Alan because Neil went to university, he was doing electrical engineering, and he just bumped into Alan, and Alan had a band. They started jamming together, but Alan had his own separate band at the time, and occasionally Neil would join in, and it just so happened that the members of Alan's band eventually joined in with Neil, and that's how the ball started rolling. We're going to be getting back into the performance just to finish off the last minute, but before we do, just to explain about the REO Speedwagon as a band name, it was Neil who was on his way to his history of transportation class, and on the blackboard he saw REO Speedwagon just written on there. And it was just a type of truck that was made by Ransom Eli Olds. and he was trying to think of band names. That was the day where they were deciding what to call their band, and he saw this on the blackboard. So they just changed the pronunciation from REO to REO Speedwagon, and that was it. But let's get back into the performance. And there we have it. There's so much great stuff in there. The backing harmonies as well. Vocals just spot on from Kevin the whole way through. Like I said, there will be tiny parts where it's sharp and flat, but it's not so much so that it sticks out. And that was the difference between a great singer like Kevin and then people that do need to have their voices auto-tuned because they're nowhere near the notes. This really raises the bar. Kevin's hair here is crazy, and we all go through these crazy days of having weird hair days like I've got today. Actually, this little bit poking up for some reason, I don't know why. And there was a part in this particular performance where the hair's in the mouth, and the problem is if you're going to sing and play an instrument, you've just got to deal with that. When it's in your mouth, you still got to concentrate on singing and playing the guitar because you can't stop playing. There's nothing you can do to get that hair out of your mouth. So really well dealt with there by Kevin. It's certainly a situation I can relate to. We've got the guitar solo from Gary Richrath as well, and he does have a designated video on this channel somewhere, but I think that was one with some audio issues where it's crackling a bit. But check that video out if you get a chance, because Gary had such great control on the fretboard and the control of vibrato, which is such a massive part of getting the instrument to sing in the first place, but also the way that Gary played was all about melody and expression on the fretboard. It wasn't about playing a million notes a second, and that just suited the song so well. And that is the markings of a top professional and top guitarist in order to always play something that is going to complement the track. I mentioned about the band being founded in 1967, but Gary didn't join up until 1970, and there are various personnel changes, but in 1971 was when they signed their record deal with Epic Records. So once they'd signed their deal with Epic, they got out there and gigged as much as possible, and they used a friend's station wagon in order to get all their gear from one venue to the next. So it wasn't a luxury setup. They were just going and doing the hard graft of playing night after night at as many venues as they could. So on the first 3 albums that they recorded, they switched vocalists 3 times, lead vocalists, and in 1972 was when Kevin was first involved vocally, but then he left the band in 73 and then returned to the fold in 1976. So after getting out on the road and playing so many gigs, they said to their record label that their best sound was live. So they convinced Epic Records to release a live album, and that was called You Get What You Play For, and that was in 1977. And in 1978 is when they released You Can Tune a Piano, but You Can't Tune a Fish. And that was a huge hit because that sold over 2 million copies, so was therefore certified double platinum, and it got to number 29 in the charts. So then in 1975 is when they released 9 Lives and followed that up with High Infidelity in 1980. And just to say something about that album in particular, because it's something that you don't hear every day, that album went diamond. So it sold over 10 million copies. And you often hear about albums going 2 times platinum, 5 times platinum, but in order to go diamond, it means that you've got to go 10 times platinum. So just crazy sales on that particular album. That's a massive hit everywhere. And that was in the USA that it went diamond. And then in 1982 is when they followed that one up with Good Trouble. So Good Trouble went double platinum. And then in 1984, they released Wheels Are a Turnin', and that went double platinum as well. And it also had a monster hit on there, and that was Can't Fight This Feeling, and that went to number 1 in the charts. In 1985, they performed at the Live Aid concert, and in 1987 is when they released Life As We Know It. And I'm not going to have time to cover everything in this video. It's going to be impossible to fit it all in, but Gary left the band in 1989, and they continued to record, and you can still go and check out a gig now. They're on tour at the moment, so REO Speedwagon, if you want to catch a gig, you can do. But what a great live band, and one of those massive selling bands as well. Over 40 million records they've sold. And especially the 1980 album that I mentioned, High Infidelity, because that was just a monster album. Just that one album had 4 singles that made it into the top 40. So we had monster hits all round just on that one album, and it went diamond. So what a fantastic live band. And that is what it was all about back in the late 60s and 70s and 80s, when these guys were just selling out venue after venue after venue. It was because of their instrumental ability as a collective, but also their instrumental ability as musicians independently, and the way that they interacted with each other to put on such a great live show and just be top musicians all round. This video is a great representation of the REO Speedwagon live sound. It was just head and shoulders above so many other bands. But thank you so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!